Jonathan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
You're right there in Utah, Sandy, Utah.
Yep, that's right. Just south of Salt Lake, near Little Cottonwood Canyon down here.
Did you grow up in Florida?
I did. I spent my first 35 years, born and raised in Florida, a rare breed. So I've seen every beach and seen every golf course I think there is to see.
What do you think about the Florida Man movies and memes and stuff? Are those accurate?
Very accurate. They're spot on. There's all kinds of creatures out there in human form, but no, I enjoyed my time down there. I just went to college there, went to high school, met my wife there. All of my family, both of our families are in Florida, so definitely some good memories there, and enjoy going back home, especially this time of year.
Yeah. What was your athletic background in high school and college? Did you run track, run marathons? What were you?
No, so I'm a late bloomer. Really, in high school, college, I held a job throughout. I was on the middle school track team, but I think I got a spot out of sympathy on that team. I was embarrassingly slow. Really, so just typical high school was focused on grades. Like that was my bread and butter. I was pretty.
What video game are you best at?
Oh man, I played a lot of Counter Strike, Call of Duty
You still
throughout.
play?
Oh no, no, I my priorities have changed and I don't have enough time to fit that in.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so high school, college, just traditional background. I didn't start running until after college. I was 30 years old and I had a friend, and just to like paint the picture, I hated running, which is funny to think back now looking back on that. Throughout those years, I would CrossFit, do some sort of like gym work here and there, just kind of like basic maintenance. And then I had a friend challenge me in 2018 and said, "Hey, at the end of the year, I run 50 miles in October, 75 in November, 100 in December. Do you want to do that?" And I
These
said,
are like one time effort or over the week,
over the month. So each month,
over the
October,
month.
November.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so monthly totals. So I did that, and I don't know what it was, but I got hooked. I think I saw pretty quick progress and I just jumped into it. So to answer your question, no true athletic background, and I was a late bloomer and I'm running with it now, so to speak.
So you got a. I mean, how tall are you?
So I'm 6 foot. I'm 175 pounds right now. And then funny story is in college, I tried I would do starting strength, Windler 531, and I tried the gallon of milk a day, right? His GOMAD, because I've always been a smaller guy, and trying to put on strength over the years has been very difficult. And I think eventually I found a sport that fits me a little more. Yeah, it's a little more fitting for me.
You know, there's a difference between strength and mass. Yeah, that extra 20 pounds you may have put on is, you don't want to be packing that shit up the hill now.
No, not at all. So I'm glad to not have the mass, and that's what I focus on is strength, is getting, keeping pretty lean, getting as strong as possible, and not necessarily working on, hypertrophy or getting bigger.
Have you ever had a VO2 max test?
I did, yeah, I have. I did it when I was in Florida. I actually went to the University of Florida. It was
Do
pretty
you remember what the
high.
number was?
I don't. It may have been. It was close to ST. I think was what it was. It was a few years back, and I remember looking at my Garmin recently, and it
Yeah.
was a high fees because I don't trust the Garmin. Off the top of my head,
Not for VO2 match.
no, no, no. But yeah, it was pretty close.
I'm just looking up what Lance Armstrong's was.
Oh, good.
You know what's Killian's? It's like 80, I think.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's funny to see that is, yeah, VO2 max is definitely a big predictor, but it's just an indicator. It doesn't necessarily mean, it'll give you somebody's potential, but it's not necessarily. You can be more efficient with a lower VO2 and still do just fine.
Whatever.
Yeah, yep.
I had this one athlete who trained with me. His name is Brian, and this guy he had been like a runner-up national runner-up cyclist, and then he got into guiding. Guy was just a freak all around. Probably 6'2", never seen somebody as lean. Yeah, he could, go up and down the 15-foot rope in the L sit without his feet 3 times. I mean, it was just amazing. And I went out there and did a few things with him. And then one time we went out, backcountry skiing and skinning. I was kind of, I don't know, I think we were hiking. Anyway, I was like, I thought I was doing all right, keep up with him. And he just turned it on, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I mean, my heart was going to jump, and I'm pretty good, for a normal guy. I was pretty good. I could beat all most of my athletes up my hill, right? So, but yeah, they're just a different level of. So, right, it is upper capacity, but he had a lot more
Yeah.
capacity to work with. Nice.
I wish I was born with just a high VO2, and I have friends that way that, they can go just crush a 5K, no training. I've had to work for it.
So you went from no running at 30, and you said you're 35 now. Is that right? How old are you now?
I'll be 37 in a month.
37. I mean, you did a marathon, 244, which is 6:15 minute miles, right? What was your fastest mile? Do you remember?
Oh, so I am pretty good at keeping it pretty steady. So it was probably around 6:10. Like once I get locked in, I can kind of just tune in to a pace. So it was probably 6:10, maybe low sixes. And then I had some above. So yeah, I averaged out 6:15 or so. And that was at CIM, California International Marathon in Sacramento, end of 23.
And you didn't qualify for New York with that pace?
So the funny thing, the answer is yes. For my age, New York Marathon, I believe it's a sub 250 to enter the lottery as a guaranteed. But the thing with the guaranteed is they only have a limited number of spots. I don't know how they don't release how many that is. Let's say it's 100, and 1,000 people that are under that 250 mark enter the lottery. They give it to the fastest 100. And I think for this past year, I don't recall the exact time, but you had to be under a sub 220 or 225. It was a quick time to be guaranteed. No, I entered the lottery, was not selected for New York, but it was good enough for Boston, good enough for Berlin, which I haven't ran Berlin.
That's interesting because you submitted your training hours per year. I've never kept track like that, but it was about 16 hours a week. So it's like 785 or something a year. So that's about, what is that? 3 hours a day would be 21 hours. So you're doing what, 2 hours a day, probably pretty close to 2 hours a day of training. I looked at that and I thought it was, I mean, do you remember last year in terms of running volume, what your highest week was?
Yeah,
In terms of
so
mileage? Do you do by mileage or time?
so now that I'm more trail ultra, it's more time. But I think mileage was probably 120 miles as a peak, and that was right before the 100 miler. 100-mile weeks when I was road running was very common, and of course a lot less time. But if we're talking time as far as volume, I think my highest week was 35 hours, and
In terms of
that was a yeah, that was a big week. And a lot of it was hiking, running in the mountains type work.
right. Who do you use? My programming for ultras, or who do you use now, or who did you start using? And I imagine you're doing it yourself now, but who did you start using for ultra programming?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I was self-programmed for all road running. When I moved over to ultras, I started working with a coach, and I have a coach now through CTS, Carmichael Training Systems, and I work with him very closely just because there's a lot of variables going into trail and ultra running that I was not familiar with. But road running marathon, very well written about, very well studied. So there's a lot out there. And I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that. So that was no problem to pick up. But yeah, I'm working with CTS now.
Yeah, I have seen, I've read about every ultra running book out there, and they get pretty skippy on the details of the programming. Give me some of the details that this coach, variables that you didn't think about that he found or you think about now for ultra.
Yeah, and a lot of it's based on my input, right? It's like I'm not just working with a coach to tell me what to do. I know that I respond very well to higher volume. I found that out myself when I was road running. I If I work in a lot of speed work and higher mileage, I'm not injury prone, so I'm able to kind of absorb a lot of that work. So when it
Well,
comes to
just
ultra,
hold on a sec. If I kind of understand it, the general theory is that when you increase the speed work, it takes longer to recover, so you cut back on your volume, but that you're able to get it all in, is what you're saying.
not at the same time, right? So
Right.
it'll be least specific. So you start with more intensity, overall volume, overall time will be less. But then as you get closer, increase the overall
Increase
volume.
intensity, pull back the volume. Okay, so that's traditional. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. And so things I look at when I'm ultra running is a lot of vert. As I get closer to the event, specific nutrition training. So whether that be carbs or calories per hour.
Let's just hold back there in terms of the vert.
Yep.
Give me an idea right now in terms of programming. Let's say you're going to do a 50-mile race with 10,000 vert elevation and loss. So 10,000 up, 10,000 down. How do you program in to get that elevation gain in addition to the mileage?
Yeah.
Or what's the elevation formula that you use? Go ahead.
Yeah, so like a common rule of thumb is you want to hit the distance and vert in a week of your target race. I think that could be, I try to go a little bit more than that, especially if it's a shorter race or like you said, you're maybe 10,000 feet of vert. I will try to concentrate a lot of that volume on the weekend or back-to-back runs. So rather than try to peanut butter spread it across the week, let's say, 1 to 2,000 feet a day, I'll try to concentrate a lot of that in back-to-back days. So that way you're running on tired legs, you're getting a lot of that volume into a smaller period, and then maybe take a Monday, a rest day, a little bit easier on Tuesday. And so it's rather than spreading it out, you're concentrating a lot of that volume, similar to what that race is going to demand.
Yeah, that's because my formula is quite a bit different. I think it's like 70% of the volume, but like 50 of it's over 2 days. And I'm gonna look that up. In other words, so yeah, I'm really loading up on that weekend run for the reasons that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it helps. I mean, that's what I found out firsthand, and we'll get into it. Things I've done wrong, things I've done right, and I think concentrating that load over a small period is really helpful.
Tell me about, it's pretty difficult. Like in Jackson, I was talking to Sam Schwartz. He's on the team too. He's getting ultras. He's run a couple of them. And in Jackson, we got Snow King right there. It's like 8.8 miles up and 1,600 feet. So it's a very efficient, it's right in town. So it's a very efficient way to get the vertical in. I know you got the Wasatch right there. I imagine you've got some hill or loop that you get your vertical in, right?
Yeah, we've got similar, there's multiple options. So the one I'll do is Grandeur, and I do the west face.
What's it called?
Grandeur Peak.
Grandeur?
Yeah, and
okay,
so
go ahead.
That's a little over 2 miles, maybe 2.1, 2.2 miles up and 3,200 feet. So that's your 1,600 feet a mile, same, it's steep. And the good thing I like about that is it's not too technical, so you can move up and down pretty efficiently. It's the rocks and the terrain aren't the limiter. Your legs are. So that I'll hit that pretty frequently.
Is it trail up and down, I assume, all the way? Up and down?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your best time on Granger to the top?
Oh, man. I
know you're geeking out and keeping this, so.
Yeah, I would say an hour. What I do, I usually lap it. This was my bread and butter last year, was up and down maybe 4 or 5 times and kind of focus on efficiency downhill too. I would, if I had, I don't have it recorded, but I'd say an hour probably was common.
I know Troy at one time, he said 2,000 feet and 45 minutes unloaded was kind of a standard for alpinists. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I did a podcast with a guy who runs a hot shot crew, and he has like 2,000 feet with a 35-pound cat carrying a train saw in an hour. That's like the standard for the entire crew. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I could have made that in my best days.
That's moving.
I might have to send a coach out there when they do that here just to see. So you'll do that. Tell me about running down. I know I remember reading about one female ultra runner. She was young. I never heard about her since. But she was scoring well because she would bomb downhill like recklessly. And then she'd pass all the vets who were, going uphill. When you say technically run downhill, you're trying to save your knees, you're trying to be more efficient, you're still trying to move fast. What are you doing technically? What does technical downhill running mean?
Yeah, it means not tripping over a rock and face planting. It means keeping quick steps really quick. Keep the feet moving because as soon as they hit the ground, you want them back up. You don't want to pound the quads too much.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have improved on, and I will be also be a focus throughout this year that I want to continue to work on that some more. I was getting past a little bit on the downhills for the people who've just been like on ultra running and in the mountains their entire lives. I think that's somewhere I can continue to improve, just fast feet.
Yeah, there's quite a skill to it. I thought I was good at doing that. Again, I could beat all my athletes downhill and all the guys I'd hike with. And then I went fucking on a couple trips of guides, and there was just one guy. Well, every one of them crushed me, but these are excellent guides there in Jackson. There was one guy. He was an older guy. He was one of the older guides, an older senior guy, and he was probably late 60s, and he was skinny and tiny, but he would flow. I mean, this isn't downhill, but just like through boulder fields. You know, the boulder fields, there's no trail. You're hopping.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I mean, I had to stop and watch him. It was so I'd never seen anybody move so quickly through that terrain. And then I was following this other guy, and he was a little younger and thicker, and he was just turning it on just to embarrass me. And if I hadn't slowed down, I was destined to crack my skull open because there's no way I was keeping up with him. It's quite the skill for sure. What's the worst injury you got running downhill? Got a concussion or anything?
No concussion. I've definitely scraped up my entire arm, side, just going down. And it's almost like when you think it's going to be easy and you kind of just stop thinking for a second and your toe catches a rock and you eat it. I mean, I hit my head on a rock. Luckily, no concussion. Really got lucky on that one. But yeah, blood. It's common to come back bloody. No major sprained ankles, but I've definitely tweaked my ankle, kind of tape it up real tight and get back out there, but nothing that sidelined me for too long.
Have you ever gone to an ultra camp?
No, I haven't gone to a camp. I've done a kind of a self DIY camp. That's when I did my biggest week last year, and it was
Yeah.
I had the Wasatch in my backyard, so it was just taking 4 days of high volume kind of DIY style.
I just wonder if imagine it's one of the things they teach those camps is I camp. So let's kind of go into your training for the UTMB, and that's the Ultra something de Blanc, right? How did you get?
Yeah,
Go ahead and say it. Sorry.
Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc. That's my best French. That's all I know at this time.
That must be exciting, and that's in August, and that's Chamonix, right? Is that
Yeah.
out of Chamonix or is it out of? Yeah.
Yeah, starts and ends in Chamonix, goes through Italy, Switzerland, and of course France.
Tell me about now. You had to qualify for that, and I saw your. I mean, what's the qualification standard for that? Is it? Just go ahead and go into what do you have to do to qualify to go to that race?
Yeah, so it's a lottery system.
What is okay?
Yeah, a lot of these big races are lottery systems. So between hunting and running, I guess my two hobbies and things I enjoy the most are all lotteries. Yeah, they use a system what's called stones, and you have to run the races within the UTMB, I guess, system. They have races throughout the world. And the 100K that I raced last year, Desert Rats down in Fruita, Colorado, that was one of the UTMB races. So for running that, I got what was considered 3 stones. And you have to have a index, what they call it. So I had to run a 100K race, which I got the index for running the 100K race. And then I had to have stones to enter the lottery. And I entered on just kind of a hope and a prayer. I had no idea how many of these stones I would need to get selected, and with my 3 stones I was picked. So I went in with one race, 3 stones. I heard stories right on the internet of people with 10 plus stones, so they'd ran maybe.
Oh, so this is like points for a hunting tag then. They're
That's
gonna hate
exactly
you.
right. Yeah, exactly. So when
You get a stone every year you apply probably or something, right?
Exactly. I was expecting to take multiple years. And I actually got word when I was leaving Jackson last month. I was on a ski trip at Jackson Hole, and woke up. Had an email from UTMB saying I was running 106 miles in August. So that was exciting.
I know it's a fun race, but the what makes it difficult is the elevation gain loss, right?
Yeah,
Is it the highest there is? What is it, like 32,000 feet? Is that gain and loss? That must be gain and loss, right?
No, it's 33,000 feet of gain, 33,000 feet of loss.
God, your knees are gonna be mad at you at the end of that thing.
Yeah,
Is
so
that's go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that'll be the focus of training. Yeah, that's by far the most I've done. The 100 miler I did last year was 22,000 gain. So this will be, 150% of that.
Have you worked with your coach all the way through? Have you started your design into that, or is he like leaving you alone, letting you just do volume stuff now, some strength? How long's your training plan for that going to be?
Yeah, so I actually met with him this morning to talk about UTMB specifically. Right now, I'm training for a 100-mile gravel race in 3 weeks, and that was just more of, hey, let's get some aerobic work in over the winter. Yeah, I can do that on the trainer inside, kind of mix it up a bit, and then starting beginning of March after that race, it will be focused on building my run volume back up. So right now, maintaining probably 30 miles a week or so. So it'll be building that back up and then going into more of speed work, kind of uphills, getting the lactate threshold, all of that hitting on those systems, and June, July timeframe really hitting the vert in the mountains pretty hard.
You have any idea what the in terms of the week? I imagine that he gives you the mileage. I mean, what's the top of the cycle, the top of the progression in terms of mileage and volume? Any idea what that'll be? Mileage and vertical for the race.
Yeah, I would think it would be similar to what I did last year. Hopefully, it'll probably be a little bit more. And that was I hit 31,000 in a week with the 120 miles. And that was I was looking at it. I had a 8-hour run on Saturday. I think I ended up doing 36 miles or so with 11,000 feet of vert. And then the following day, I did a 5-hour run, another 26 miles with 8,000 feet. So it was 20,000 feet of vert in 2 days, and then 31,000 for that week. So it'll probably be similar, maybe a touch more.
What was the mileage of this? You said you ran 8 hours the first day and got like 36 miles, then 5 hours the next. Do you remember how many miles you ran in the five? You could have said it and I missed it.
Yeah, I believe that was 25 hours or 25 miles, excuse me. So I think it was 36 and then 25. So probably about 60 between those 2 days.
Well, that's interesting. That's kind of the way I've got my plan right now. Top of the progression is a 90-mile week. So less overall volume, but the Saturday run is 40 miles and the Sunday is 20.
Yeah, that's a big one. I know.
It's interesting because whenever I've looked at those other plans, they've kind of been time based, but it doesn't matter how long you take if you don't finish 100 miles. So I make my mileage pace.
Yeah, and I do use races as training runs as well. So when I say my longest was 36, 40 miles, it was actually, I ran that 100K in April of last year, used it as a training run, practice fueling, all of that.
That's what, like 70 miles or something like that.
Yeah, 60. I think it ended up being 65 miles, and then I ran that 50 miler at the beginning of May, or sorry, that was at the beginning of June, and 50 miles and 11,000 feet of vert. So that was a training run. That was the intent. So yeah, that worked those into.
So last year, your focused race was a desert rat race, and these other two we kind of planned in to part of your training and to tune up for race stuff.
The Desert Rat was actually the first race of the season in April. That was.
I'm sorry, I messed up.
No, you're good. That was the Rust Buster in April, and then
Got it.
Crazy Mountain 100 at the end of July. That was a 100-miler in Montana. That was the build. Yeah. So that one was in end of July, 100 miles, 22,000 feet of vert, true mountain race, and it was a great time. No signal, right? It's out there, and it's a newer race, 3 years or so, I believe it's been around. The race director, everybody there it was just a small town or like a small race feel, and it's growing in popularity really quickly.
For that, if I can take you back to your programming last year, you're doing the top of the progression for that cycle, 120 miles per week there, about 35 miles overall training. You do that 8-hour and get like 11, 12,000 vertical in, and then the 5-hour the next day. For the 8-hour, in terms of setting that up, did you consciously go in there with, I got to hit this mileage, I got to hit this vertical? And if so, how did you, I assume you got, Onyx or something and found the trail to make it happen. Go ahead and tell me how you did that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite part of the process. Every weekend is getting on CalTopo or Gaia or, whatever app I decide to use and planning out these routes. And I have an idea. I typically have a vert goal, definitely a time goal. Distance, not as much, because it just depends on the conditions, especially springtime. I don't know how the trails are going to be. There, it could still be snowed in, so it could be slower. But I still want to get time on feet regardless. So I kind of just take the distance as it comes, and that's been something I've learned moving from road to trail. Is the mountain's going to give you what it's going to give you on that day. Some days it's going to be a little bit slower depending on if it's snowed in or not. But yeah, I target vert, and I have an idea when I plan out my routes. I'll go on, create my plan, create the GPX file, and I'll send it to my watch so I have that, and I use that to guide me and just kind of go on an adventure every weekend.
What watch are you rolling with?
Yeah, so I have the Phoenix. I believe this is the 7. I've had the Garmin Phoenix 5, 6, now 7. I'm going to hang on to this. I love it. Great battery, and it has all the features I need.
Yeah. Do you take your phone with you,
I do.
or do you take a InReach?
Both. Yeah. So
Both, yeah, phone InReach.
yeah, so I bring an inReach with me. A lot of the times I won't have signal. A lot of times I don't need it, which is good. I'd rather have it and not need it than the opposite. But I make sure that I bring that in the backcountry. Water filter, just like you would any other mountain sport or adventure. You need to make sure that you're ready for the conditions out there.
I know Mike Wolf pretty well. He did really well in a few of those races, and he was a North Face athlete. And he was talking about his long weeks, and he was doing 120-mile weeks or 100-mile weeks. I mean, that's a long. How is your in terms of recovery? Knees, joints, quads, stuff like that. What have you found that's worked for you? And when do you know you push too far, or when you can push further? What's your body telling you?
Yeah, yeah. So strength training and accessory work, I'd say, has been a staple. Well, while I wasn't an athlete in high school or college, I've always enjoyed going into the gym and doing strength work. So
Okay.
I've made sure to keep that up. And I try to do 2 to 3 times per week, single leg work, side lateral banded walks, all of those kind of things that don't seem sexy, but I think of
Did you
almost,
have you trained strength yesterday, right? Or was it the day before?
yeah, I did yesterday.
Tell
Yeah, I
me
did.
tell me exactly what you did.
Oh man, so yesterday I did a warm up row, kettlebell swings, and I went into weighted pull ups. So right now, focusing on upper body strength, trying to increase, especially in off season. So I did 30-pound weighted vest 5x5 on the pull ups, and then I moved
Yeah, that's
into
that's no joke.
yeah.
Good for you.
I try to be I'm not going to win any strength awards, right? But for a runner, I try to be decent, especially as it translates into hunting and pulling back a bow and all that. So pull ups, and then I went into I know I did Bulgarian split squats, 50-pound dumbbells, 8 on each leg. Did some side plank crunches. What else did I do? Yeah, I did some sandbag lunges too. I like those. Those will work you pretty good. I use the MTI sandbag 60-pound standard. Throw that on the back of the neck, and then I'll lunge around my basement too and work some of those in. So it's a lot of single leg work and upper body.
Are you designing your own strength stuff, or does your coach help you with that also?
He doesn't do strength. Funny enough, he's probably getting on to me about trying to do less strength, and I tell him no way. So I'm like, this is going to be. I enjoy it. It's always going to be a part of what I do. I want to do more this year. So it's
Because
me.
yesterday you did that after your 4-hour ride, right?
Yeah. So 4 hour
Yeah, yeah.
ride, 8. Kind of kicked the feet up. Watched there was an ultra race on yesterday, and then I went into the gym in the afternoon.
I'm curious about the volume. For me, that anything like 8+ reps, you're pushing hypertrophy, and I think it's kind of old school endurance strength training. Is you want to do high reps to build endurance. It never made sense since you get plenty of high reps just run. So for my strength training for endurance athletes, I think in season, I mean it's high resistance, low volume. So I'd have you heavier weight and 4 reps per side. But the higher reps work for you, or do you do everything?
I probably keep it around the 8 to 10. I'd say the most. I will work in some of the muscular endurance work. I know that Scott Johnston and those guys, uphill athlete, or what they do. So I'll do some step up, some of those split jumps, like kind of body weight type of work, maybe throw on a light vest. But I did notice back in 2022, so at the end of last year, I kind of did a retrospective of, I like to look back and see what I can change going forward. One of the things was in 2022 when I was doing a lot of the Windler 531 work, it was heavy weights, lower reps. I felt bulletproof, both running and in the mountain. And so I kind of strayed from that last year, and that's what I want to get back to this year.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of been my experience. I'm very contrarian when it comes to all the endurance programming.
Yeah, I can go on a soapbox about how many runners, especially trail runners, do not like strength training, or if they do consider strength training, it's not the same definition as what I would say of picking up a barbell and kind of moving some weight.
Yeah, I think if I was your coach, I'd be concerned about excess muscle on you. Do you remember what you weighed, in your freshman in college? Were you about
I
the
would,
same? Maybe you're just one of those guys.
yeah, I mean, I did get up there, and it wasn't because of muscle though. It was probably just too many beers, and no, I was probably in 190s, 195. I've never gotten way too big. I'm at 175 now, like I said, so that's probably like homeostasis, kind of where I fit in naturally.
Does your coach work with you to cut weight as you go into a race at all? Or is he just trying to keep you fueled for the volume, or does he make you get on a scale and see how much you weigh and yell at you if you're getting heavy?
No, no, he doesn't do that. I think that's shunned upon these days, but I do that. Like because especially with these uphill sports, I want to make sure I'm lean and not, but lean to a certain extent where you're still strong. I think some people can take it a little bit too far, so I try to find that happy medium of where I'm the strongest, but also not carrying around excess weight.
Do you get so lean that you go in the grocery store and you start shivering when you go by the meat section or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. I did get a DEXA scan probably a year or two ago, and it was 8% when I was pretty lean. So I hover around 8 to 11%, I'd say, body fat, somewhere around there.
And so your hard gainer is probably your natural is probably around 11, 10% anyway. Then
Yeah, yeah.
you mentioned those two tune-up races last year. You got this gravel, and that's a bike race that's coming up, 100 miles. So is that like a 4-hour effort, maybe? Or how long is that going to be?
I wish it was 4 hours. I think the winner
You're
last
thinking road
year,
bike.
yeah,
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 road,
exactly. I think the
yeah.
fastest time last year was 6 hours, and that was by Keegan Swenson, and he's an absolute monster. So it may have been
Okay.
even quicker. It may have been 5 hours. I'm targeting probably 7. I'm not a cyclist, but I do have a pretty solid power output in watts per kilogram. So I'm just going out there. I want to try a new sport, have fun out there, but I know once I clip in, I'm gonna want to hammer it. So it should be a good time.
Is this I haven't followed the gravel racing sport at all. I'm not necessarily a cyclist. Tell me about, is it just like on a friggin' dirt roads in the forest, or what is it?
Yeah, so it'll be a mix of probably 40% asphalt paved. So it's you can't just have a pure dirt road or mountain bike. You also need to go fast on the asphalt sections as well. So it'll be a mix of paved, it'll be a mix of single track, double track, Forest Service roads. I think this particular course has some chunky sections, some more like rocky technicals. You can't go super skinny on the tires. You also don't want to go super wide because then you'll lose speed on the road. So you just kind of want to find that happy medium of middle ground and being able to navigate around some of the rocks and technical sections.
You are you a bike geek too? Are you your own bike mechanic?
I am my own bike mechanic. I'm learning that as I go, but I've learned also that the bike crowd gets deep into it, which I do appreciate, but I'm not that deep into it. I'll like, for example, this week I need to change out my tires. I'll replace the tires. I go tubeless, so I'll put sealant in there. Need to get everything tuned up. I wax my chains, so just make sure everything's dialed in at home. I enjoy it, but I don't go too deep into it.
I think my sister, she's been cycling forever. The last bike, she's a road cycler. I think the last bike she purchased this few years ago was like $15,000.
Yeah,
How much did your bike cost you?
I think it was around 6 grand for my gravel bike. Those the
Your
road
gravel
bikes,
bike.
so yeah, they can easily get up there.
Wow, yeah. Do you have a what bike specifically are you riding?
Yeah, it's a specialized crux, so it's lighter weight. It's more. like the geometry is more on the road side. So I can ride it on the roads pretty easily. Throw some skinnier tires and it moves.
Yeah. Did you get specific components for it? Or did you just let it go with the stock components?
Yeah, so I customized the components. What I did, it's referred to as a mullet setup. So it's a one by up front. So I have a 46 tooth chain ring up front, but in the back and up front is the road gearing and road shifters, so electronic shifters. But in the back, it's mountain bike gearing, so it's a wide range. It goes down from a 10 tooth to a 52, and that's helpful for the canyons here. I can bump it on the 52 tooth in the back, and I can go uphill. It's called a granny gear, or it's referred to as a granny gear when I need it. But then I can also drop it down, when I'm hitting the downhills and not spin out as much. So it's a wide range. It's good. It's perfect for around here. It's good for gravel too.
Do you have a road bike too, or you just rolling doing it? Or you have a road bike too?
I do. I bought it years ago, just like right before, probably like 2019. Craig's the special, but it's a good one. It's a specialized tarmac. Right now, it sits on the trainer down in the basement, so I hop on that for these cold winter days, and then when I want to go outside, I just grab the other bike.
Do you do your own cycle programming or bicycling programming, or are you working with a coach on that too?
So same coach right now will program. He does both cycling and ultra running background, so he'll program the cycling too. A lot of that's where all my volume is right now. It's on the bike with some runs thrown in. So it's been a fun build up to where this is, but I'm also eager to get back on the trails and start running again, get out in the mountains.
When he does the cycling program, is he using power to dictate your pace or heart rate?
Yeah, so mainly by power, mainly by zone. So my FTP, it'll be a percentage of my FTP for endurance, tempo, threshold, all of that.
What is FTP? Is like what does it stand for? FTP again?
Functional threshold power.
Yep, I've designed one of those programs, a power based endurance cycle.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's all, one thing I do appreciate about cycling is with the power meter, it's very dialed, right?
Very precise, right?
It's very precise. You can hit your zones. You know exactly. If I know my FTP, like I know what power I can hold during this race for the most part and be fine. Whereas running, it's more based on effort, how you feel. It's a little less precise.
Yeah, it's if you're going uphill, you're going to slow down, but your FTP is going to be the same, right? So it's a little bit different if you're running pace based. Is he using power for running, or is it just heart rate based and pace, or does he
Yeah.
just do heart rate?
It's mainly RPE, rate of perceived effort, which
Yeah,
correlates to heart rate. But yeah, mainly it'll be, hey, run at an RPE of 6 or 4, and I'm pretty dialed in to know kind of what that should feel like, depending on the situation. If it's super cold, I know my heart rate's going to be lower. If it's hot, humid, depending on the conditions, I know my heart rate's going to be higher for the.
I can't remember. I remember reading about Carmichael systems and looking into it, and I think about the book, but I can't remember exactly how they programmed. But I do remember vaguely about it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
they started, so Carmichael, he worked with
He was like
Lance.
Lance's guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So he worked with him originally. It was all cycling, and then they kind of branched out into ultra running and triathlon and other sports.
Right. What in terms of the running, do you do? Does he have you do any for your as you start going into your race? Do you do any time trials? And if so, do you remember what distances are, or do the distance vary? Or does he use the same time trial all the way through the
Yeah,
programming?
yeah. So we'll run a route mainly uphill. So I'll pick a route at the beginning of training block, and I'll time trial it. It could be it's typically 15 to 20 minutes up, depending on the situation. And then later in the season, I'll do the same route. That could be a little tricky because, again, depending on conditions, if it's cooler now, colder, and it's hotter when I try it later. But yeah, in general, you can see it's a good gauge to see how I do later versus now. What I was talking to him about this morning and what I've done before is lactate testing. So I have a lactate meter, and
Yeah.
I don't use it necessarily to drive too much as far as decisions, but I like it to just to check in and see, hey, what pace was I running on? I'll do it on the treadmill in my basement is, what was my lactate at this speed, at this heart rate? And then test the same thing because down the road, maybe 8 weeks, 12 weeks later, because I can control the conditions a little bit more and see if where I'm improving or where maybe my systems are not responding. But again, I don't get too married to those numbers. I just use it kind of as a guideline. And, I've used just general fit. I know that if I'm doing the work, I'm going to improve. And I've just slowly seen over time that my paces have gotten better. But I do like the idea of time trialing a route. So for example, this year I may go back to, I'll definitely go back to Grandeur Peak, but running up and down that and compare to last year, I think will be a good exercise.
So on your treadmill, you're hopping off and pricking your finger and doing it yourself then?
Yeah, my wife is a sport. She'll hop in and help me out.
Yeah, we've done that before. You got to get all the sweat off and it gets all messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's she'll poke me and I'll take my blood and test the lactate. But yeah, it's very, if you get a bad reading, it could be messed up. So I've gotten pretty efficient at doing it, testing the ear, testing the finger, different spots.
You prick your ear?
Yeah.
I think were you a person I was talking to you about Norwegian method? I just read that book. Yeah, we were going back and forth about that, right?
Yeah.
It seemed like those guys are doing it in the field, right? Because they did it so much. They were doing it often.
Yeah, they do it all the time. They use it to guide. So they'll say if they do a 10 by 1K repeats or whatever their threshold session is, they'll test after a couple. If it's too high, they'll dial back the intensity a bit, right? Because they want to be they don't want to push too hard. They want to be in the right zone, get the right stimulus, and their coach knows way more about that than I do and is very scientific. But yeah, they use it to guide essentially all their sessions at intensity.
So you're using, or he's governing you with RPE, not heart rate.
Yeah, so mainly RPE. It does correlate to heart rate. I know, like we have both. We use Training Peaks. It's a common platform. So I know that my recovery runs, around the upper end of that should be around 136 beats per minute. My endurance runs around 154 BPM. I'm not married to those numbers, but I know that's my numbers. 165 is going to be threshold. So we put in kind of what my threshold heart rate is, and it based on the zone system they use, it'll generate those. But I use that as a guideline. But I use lactate to kind of dial it in even further because I know my endurance heart rate or my aerobic heart rate is higher in reality than what these zone systems say, just because of, I guess, the aerobic training that I've done. So I use it to guide. I wear a chest heart rate monitor every session. It's something I pay attention to, but don't put too much weight onto it.
Do you have your watch set up to beep at you or buzz you if you go too high or too low?
Not on heart rate. I will sometimes on pace, sometimes, but I'll look at it frequently enough so that I'm tuned in. I don't like my watch beeping at me too much, so I turn a lot of the notifications off. But I use it all the time for guided workouts. Like say 20 minutes uphill, it'll beep at me when the 20 minutes are over, tells me what my pace was, and then just kind of use it to guide the workouts. But I don't let it necessarily tell me if I'm going above or beyond some threshold.
Have you looked at your running form, practiced pros running, or had your running form critiqued and fixed?
I probably should. I feel like I'm not too efficient, but no, I haven't gotten a gait analysis or anything like that. It's something I've thought about. My train of thought was, if I'm not getting injured, if I'm handling the volume, if I'm improving, I'm probably on the right path. And I know that's a lot less scientific than what I was just talking about. So it seems like I'm probably like on the science and data side, and I probably would be somebody who looks at the gait, but I haven't, just because my form must be right for me if I'm not getting injured. So I've kind of run with that, but I'm sure I could improve on the efficiency side of things.
Do you know what your cadence is, for example? Your running cadence?
So it's actually gotten a little bit slower. It's probably 170 most road runs. It really depends on the terrain.
So this is your steps per minute?
Yeah. So it depends on the terrain.
170 seems really high, but maybe I'm missing something.
No, So
You're taking like really tiny little steps.
no, they say 180 is ideal, but that's
Oh, that's right. Because it's 180 because it's 90 per leg. Okay, because I used to put my thing to go 90 for my right foot. Okay, yeah, it's like, oh my god, that's really fast.
and I've noticed that's something I'll lose if I don't throw in strides or sprints or some sort of speed work. My cadence, like I'll slow down quite a bit. So it's something I need to stay on top of or just like rework in. Otherwise, I'll lose some of that efficiency.
Well, that's interesting that he hasn't had you run to a metronome. He's yeah. All I noticed just in athletes I've worked with is that so the guys who are really fast and don't look like they're working very hard have a 90 beats per minute cadence,
Yeah, yeah,
and they go right by you.
yeah. No, they look like they're not trying at all, and I'm like, wow, I feel I'm working. Like I feel like I'm just a slog right now. I'm just kind of pushing through it. So, um, you know, I've never been one that feels like I'm light on my feet and just gliding over the ground. Like I said, I've worked for it, but just putting in the work. I'm sure I could use some improvements on the efficiency front.
Does he have you do any like loaded when you're doing your uphill work? Do it loaded, carry a pack or anything like that, or is it all unloaded just with your nutrition stuff?
Yeah, so it's not with a vest or any weight like that. The most it would be like the pack I would have for a race. So it would have my
Yeah.
bottles, my nutrition, my food, maybe poles, jacket. So very race specific, nothing more than that.
Do you use your poles uphill, or do you when you're going uphill to use your poles?
Yeah, so it'll depend, and I know I've read quite a bit of studies on if it's efficient or if it's more efficient or less efficient because you're using your upper body, right? So you're burning oxygen when you're using those poles. So I did for my 100 miler last year. I used poles, but very sparingly on the very steep portions because I do have some upper body muscle, so I do want to use that to my advantage too, kind of push up. Yeah, so that was something new that I introduced last year was poles. I don't know. I'll use them at UTMB for sure. I wasn't sold one way or another if if they help tremendously or not, but it's nice to have them, especially when you're starting to go downhill and if maybe some loose scree, some sections where you can kind of get some extra footing. It's like a third leg that you can plant down there on the ground. That's when
Oh
they're
wow,
helpful
I
too.
always found they slow me down going downhill. I would use them going uphill, but I want to use them going downhill.
Yeah, very very sparingly, and then just put them in the pack and start moving. So I would
Got it.
say I'm not, yeah, I'm not 100% on the poles, but I incorporate them and I try to train with them to become more efficient with them.
Will you during the race are you walking up hills or it depends on the hill?
It depends on the hill for sure. I would say I try to at least do some sort of quick movement. I'm trying to move quick no matter what. It's not necessarily who goes the fastest, but it's who slows down the least. So I'm just trying to move and you not bury myself so where I just come to a crawl. But like on the short grades, I try to just jog those, and that's a lot of the training is being able to sustain a moderate pace up a slight incline because when you're 60, 70 miles into these long races, that 1% grade feels like a 20% at that point. But yeah, just trying to move. But there's certain points when it gets so steep that you don't have a choice. You're burning more energy if you're trying to run up it, so it makes more sense to just hike quickly up it.
Did you blow through that first race in Florida and then thought you were all a badass and head out since you won that and head out to the mountains to get your ass kicked? I assume that's what happened, but I want to talk to you.
That's 100% what happened. So I signed up for that race in Florida. I was in the middle of a Boston Marathon training. I was interested in trail. It's like I'm going to sign up for this 50K. I'm going to go run it. I'm going to treat it as a training run. I'm going to run this 31-mile race as my training run for the 26-mile Boston Marathon. So I didn't go balls to the wall, but I did, you know, I'm competitive. So I was like, okay, I'm going to run this. I won it 4 hours, I think, which was a 7:45 pace, which is, just an average training run for me at that time. And it's like, oh, wow, first ultra. I won this thing. And yeah,
And then you went home and said, "Honey, we're moving them."
yeah, it's just something like that. I was, yeah, we went out to Montana. We have family in Bozeman, visited out west, and I went on it. It was August, I think, and the climate was like, this weather's amazing. I had no idea this existed in August. I'm used to just stepping outside, going on a run, and coming back drenched, sweat, hating. I would lose 8 pounds on a long run on a weekend in Florida, and that's while drinking water. So yeah, eventually enough times out west, and I was like, there's something about the mountains. Every time I come back to Florida, I want to go back out there. That's where I should be. That's where I want to be. This flat beach, humid, it's great for vacation. I've been here 35 years, but the mountains are, that's where I want to be. So my wife also agreed, and she's like, hey, let's take the plunge, which she's a trooper for that. And we packed our bags and eventually landed on Utah. But there was between Wyoming, Montana, there were a number of states that was, we were looking, we just wanted to get out to the mountains.
So take me to that race in. Did you get a coach for that racing, the Never Summer race in Colorado, or did you program yourself?
So that was programmed myself, and you were right. I got my ass kicked. So we moved to Utah March of 23. That race was in July of 23. So I had just come off. I did Boston Marathon that year as well. So that's in April. So between April and July, just moved to Utah, and then I started training for this race. So I had 12 weeks turnaround, and I had threw in just what I thought was trail runs. I went to my local trail. They were nice groomed trails. Went out there. I was trail running. I threw in a few weekends with some vert, some climbing. I think the most I got in a week may have been 12 or 13,000, which was good. The race was 14,000, so I was like, okay, I'm good to go. I just won the 50K in Florida last year. I just ran Boston Marathon. Let's do this. The race is in that, so that's Never Summer 100K. That takes in place in Gould, Colorado. Average, I think it starts at 10,000 feet. It goes up to 12,000 feet. So it's a high, yeah.
That's a high race.
High altitude race, 14,000 feet of gain over 60 something miles. And I went out, I disrespected the distance, and I disrespected the altitude, the terrain, and I found out real quick at mile 20. So I started out, I'm good. I hit mile 23. There's this climb, I believe it was 1,400 feet in a mile, and I'd never seen anything like that steep. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know that existed at the time.
You've been in Utah for a while by then, right?
For 4 months, but I wasn't
look out
really.
Your window and see the Wasatch right there. Maybe I should hike.
Yeah, I thought what I was doing was it.
Go ahead. Okay.
And I went up some. I did a few runs, but within a few months, you just moved to a new state across the country, and now you're doing this race in Colorado. It's a completely different ball game. The runners, they're completely different breed. And I left that race, and I'll get back to mile 20. That climb brought me to a halt. People were passing me, climbing. I was like, how are these people going up this mountain like this? I'm sucking wind. My game plan going into that first half, the majority of the vert. Second half, down, a lot of downhill, a lot of flats. So my game plan was, I'm just gonna use my speed the second half, and I'll be good. By the time the second half rolled around, my legs were dead. I was cramping. I was getting salt pills from strangers passing me on the trail. I was drinking pickle juice. My nutrition plan had went out the window. Like, everything had gone to shit. So it humbled me really quickly. It had a decent finish, but that's not what stuck with me. I didn't care about that. It was, okay, this is a different ball game. These are different types of runners. You need to do different type of training, and you need to respect the mountains. So that was my takeaway from that.
So you didn't come back with your tail between your legs. You're like, okay, I'm hungry now.
Oh yeah, I got fired up. It was like this. I'm gonna head down, and I love a good challenge like that. I'm I'm going to go after it. I know what I need to do. It's just a lot more being running in the mountains.
Was that mile 20 the darkest period you've had on the ultra yet, or is there one that's even worse than that?
I would say so because it was so new to me. It was the first time I'd experienced a climb like that. And for others, it may have been just another day in the mountains. But I think that was just the realization that hit me. It was like, this is what a climb, this is what a mountain ultra is. Yeah, I've had other times in races, you have highs and lows, especially in a 100 miler. I had highs and lows, but I was able to push through it. And it wasn't just kind of like the novelty of, um, you know, that big climb that I faced. And it was just something completely new to me. So yeah, I would say that was probably the lowest, just like mentally.
I talked to Sam, and I forget what race it was, but he forgot to put some of that butt butter between his cheeks. And he said, at mile 60 or something, he was hamburger. He stopped him. He had to, find some of that stuff and put it on. He said, "You can't move." And he said, "I didn't think about that." And any mistakes like that you made that first race, you look back on and say, "Oh wow." You said your nutrition went to shit, but that's because you're sucking down pickle juice, I imagine.
Yeah. So my plan was, what I did is I took my road running history and I just kind of copied that over to trail. It's like I'm gonna eat 100 gels and I'm going to drink a lot of calories. By the time halfway in, I'm like, I don't want to eat another gel. I want to eat a hamburger right now. I found out real quick that I really like Coke in the middle of ultra, so I've worked that in. My feet were good during that race. I did cramp, like I said, so it was not just the quads cramped up on that climb, but also later in the race, I had side stitches very bad. It was from doing too much, right? I was trying to outwork my current fitness, and it was probably a combination of that and sodium. So I've made sure to stay on top of the sodium, the nutrition, and another item that I found out during that race was the downhill running. I was not good at the downhill running. I went back recently and looked at my notes, and I think those are the big things as far as my takeaway from what I learned during that race.
So any other lessons learned from that race that you want to talk about? We talked about the training, not getting your vert in, not understanding how trails were rough, the downhill technical element to it. Anything else that stands out as hard lessons learned?
Not from that race, but I have other lessons from my other races. Every race that I've ran, I've learned from every single one.
Let's go into your lessons learned.
Okay, for sure. So we'll go back to Desert Rats last year, which was the 100K also in Colorado, but it was in the desert.
So this is your third. This is your second. This is your third ultra. Go ahead. 100K, so 65 miles. Go ahead.
Yep, 65 miles, Fruita, Colorado. It was in April. So went there relatively flat, 60 something miles. I believe it was 7,000 feet of gain. So not too bad. From that one, I learned about cooling and how to keep cool during the race because, again, hit mile 30, 40 in that one. I was cruising. I was on plan. Nutrition was good. I'd learned from my previous race and from training. But this one, I just heat exhaustion. I was doubled over, felt dizzy, and I just could not cool down.
How hot was it? I mean, it's in April. It can't be too hot. Was it 70, high 70s, or just intense sun, or what?
It was not very hot. I think it was 80s, maybe 70s, 80s, but it was exposed. No trees, right? You're in the desert. Yeah. And I thought, oh, hey, I've spent my entire life in Florida. I'm good with the heat. But when you're not sweating, you are sweating, but it's evaporating, and you're not seeing the sweat on you, you kind of think you don't hydrate as much as you should. You don't take precaution to cool down. So by the time I was overheating towards the second, I would say the last third of the race, it was too late at that point, and slow, kind of like easy grades that I would be able to run any other day of the week. I was kind of just jogging those. The heart rate would get jacked up because I was too hot. Throwing a hat in my ice. So coming out of that, I learned, hey, I need to make for these warmer races, or if it is warmer, I need to learn how to make sure that I'm cooling well in advance, and implemented ice bandanas, cooling at aid stations, sit down under a tent, don't stand out in the middle of the sun. Just small things like that that add up when you're running 60 to 100 miles over time.
Did you, wear a hoodie and a hat for that one? Or did you have your hoodie up?
I had a hat, did not have a sun shirt or sunshade. I had a bandana for my neck. But yeah, I know I treated it like I'm going out for a 60-mile run. I'm fit. I have my nutrition dialed, and the heat. I knew the heat could be a factor, but I didn't think it'd be that big of a factor.
Okay, more lessons learned. Any more from that race?
That was the main takeaway from that race.
Got it.
And so what I did, and for each of these, I'd take it into the next race, which is really cool to see them pay off. So I took that into Squaw Peak 50 miler 2 months later, beginning of June. So I implemented ice bandana.
Now, how do you get the ice bandana to you up there? You got your own box there at every aid station or something?
So yeah, you can at certain aid stations you can have what's called drop bags, and you can put your supplies in there. But for this particular race, I just started with it. I just had it wrapped around my neck, and you can stuff ice into it, and it'll melt, it'll drip, so it's just cold.
Oh, so when you go to the aid station, you put the ice in it. It's not like a frozen bandana.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's gonna melt and heat up pretty quick. But okay, I get it.
Yeah, wow. And they have little pouches where you can put ice into it, and it just
it's like it's like a piece of gear you can actually buy them. You don't gotta sew it up yourself.
Yeah, you can do either one. You can make them, but they also, of course, they sell them too.
Right.
But yeah, you can stuff ice into it, and it just will sit there on your neck, and as you're running, right, it just kind of slowly melts and keeps your core temperature cooler. So I started out with that, and I implemented that early and often. I did, and it was even warmer. It was 90s, I would say. It was in June in Salt Lake Valley, down in Provo. Yeah. So it was warm. Yeah. Heat was not a factor. I kept it, people, and I realized when I was the only one at the early aid stations, maybe like mile 15 to 20, nobody else was grabbing ice. I asked the aid station volunteers, hey, can you fill up my bandana while I, go fill my bottles? And they had to go find the ice. It's like, oh, is nobody else? Are the leaders not grabbing ice? And she said, no. So sure enough, a couple of the guys up front, I think they DNF'd, or I passed them, right? Because they overheated. So that's when it clicked. Okay, so this is something for warmer races that I need to implement. I learned from my previous race. But in that race, in the first 2 miles, there was a bad storm the previous week, and the road where you run on, it starts at a park, and it's probably a 3-mile lead in to the trailhead. So you're running on a mixed use paved trail. It's typically used for cyclists, runners, whatever. Well, it was flooded to shin height. It was mid shin to almost knee. And so we have hundreds of runners running through this flooded path. I didn't think anything through of it. I'm running. It's the beginning of the race. I'm amped up. So I'm running through this water. Want to get my position because we're about to hit a single track. I don't want to be stuck behind a line of people. Running the race, filling up my ice bandana. About mile 30, 35, I feel the bottom of my feet feel like raisins. I can't see them, of course, but I know that they feel like raisins.
From yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm running. I'm kind of doing what I can. The downhills, just anytime, because that skin is so soft, you're hitting the downhills.
Skin tear. Yeah.
Yeah, it started to tear. So I start to run more gingerly, and I'm like, oh man, it doesn't feel good. But I'm still moving pretty quick. And I know there's only 10 to 15 miles left. I'm chasing down some people. So I kind of had that working for me. Just mind over matter at that point. Let's tough it out. And ended up finishing 4th. I was thrilled with that. I was more thrilled with the execution of the ice, keeping cool, and how I paced the effort. It was almost a perfect even split, first half and second half. So that was that was my goal. It's like, I want to run this smart. I disrespected it before, the distance, and I just want to run a smart race. That's it. So coming out of that race was the pacing I learned, and okay, now if there's a wet course, I need to learn how to take care of my feet. So like all of these things are starting to build up each race, just kind of like putting it in my knowledge bank and using that. And then sure enough, in the 100 miler, I tried to put all of that together and it wasn't perfect. My feet ended up being an issue. We had multiple stream crossings and creek crossings in that race, and same thing happened on my feet. So I've got to figure that out.
Do you wear liner socks?
I don't wear liner socks. What I've done is just lubrication for toes and feet. There's a product, Trail Toes, that I've used. I've tried powders in training. I haven't tried that in the race. And I've changed socks, I believe, only once during the race. And I don't think I changed my shoes. I had an extra pair, but did not change them out.
Do you carry that Leuco tape around, or anything for blisters? Carry Leuco tape? Yeah.
Yeah, Leuco tape. I did tape my toes with KT tape as well. So just around the toes. I didn't have any issues with blisters. It's mainly the bottom of my feet from running through the water, and they get real soft. So I need to toughen them up. I may just soak my feet and go for a run during training and see how that works. I don't know if there's any science behind toughening up the bottom of your feet that way, but I'm going to try a few things to see what I can do.
That's interesting. So you didn't get blisters. I thought you were getting blisters, but no, something else.
I did get blisters, but not bad enough to
Stop
wear.
it.
Yeah. It was, I popped them at an aid station, rewrapped. I do have a book called Fixing Your Feet. It's a very popular for endurance athletes and outdoor people about how to take preventative measures. So that's where the lubrication, the powder, how to wrap your feet, all of that is covered in the book. It's a really good book. But apparently I need to reread it.
Yeah, I saw that, for your favorite piece of gear, you sent in a headlamp, right?
I did.
Yeah, I've never seen this. I don't know if you've even heard of this company, but it's a rechargeable headlamp. This is, I guess it has enough, you're confident you don't need to bring an extra pair of batteries in. It lasts for a long time, I guess, with the rechargeable there in there, huh? Looks heavy to me, but maybe I'm missing something. Looks like if I was a hunter, that looks like a heavy headlamp to me for my
hunting. Yeah, hunting, no problem. Running, it could be considered heavy. I have a lighter one. I have a Black Diamond lighter one, but I like the replaceable battery because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And if I don't want to be out there with, for some reason, the battery craps out.
This does have it says rechargeable, but you can't bring an extra battery for it.
Yeah. So it is. It takes a lithium rechargeable battery, and you can pop that out. So it looks like a AA.
Yeah.
And you could just so I'll bring a spare with me and keep that in my pack.
You love this thing though. That's your favorite piece of gear. I'm like, a headlamp. Whoa. Why? What's so awesome about this fucking headlamp?
No, the battery life's awesome. So it has the light settings on it. So it has a straight spotlight, high, medium, low, turbo, and then it has kind of the wide angle, high, medium, low, and you can use the light in any combination of those. So I typically just run it in spotlight, medium, and it'll last. I don't even have to think about charging it. I check it out before I go out, but the battery life's great. It fits. I like the way it fits. It's one of those pieces of gear that if you don't, it's good to have it, not need it. The battery life and everything, rather than it go out. And because a lot of times I'm out in the mornings, I'm out in the dark 90% of my training. Right, so I'm using it all the time, especially now during the winter. Dark early, and it's also stays dark pretty late into the morning. So a lot of the time spent in the dark, you got to be able to see.
What before we go into kind of your current kit you're wearing, what pieces of kit that you tried before that people said were awesome that you tried and just you tossed aside? Anything come to mind that like you tried some fancy, you maybe tried some Hokas, you went back to Ultras, or what pieces of kit that you tried that didn't work out for you? What were those?
Yeah, so a lot of trail runners, they like those high cushion Hoka Speed Goats, for example.
Yeah, I love Speed Goats. I love them.
Man, I do not. I ran in those, and they felt like they were massive on my feet. I felt like I was just running in clown shoes, and because I prefer more of a, just going back to road running again, more of a ground feel, minimalist. And I don't mean minimalist in as far as like a zero drop, kind of like barefoot running, anything like that. I just mean I like a low stack type of shoe.
So you tried them and they didn't work out for you then.
No, no, I did not. I didn't like them. So I think those are probably very overrated in the trail running space. They get a good rap. Hey, people like them. Good for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going back to them.
What else did you try that didn't work out for you?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, just on the nutrition front, people, I guess people really like Tailwind. It's a very popular brand it's a mix of sodium and carbs.
What is it? A powder or is it a gel or a powder?
It's a
You put in
powder.
your you put in your water bottle.
Yeah, you put it in your water bottle.
So
And especially,
you're drinking your electrolytes, like getting hydrated and get some calories in.
yeah, get calories in. It's carbs and sodium all in one. And for some reason in the trail space, it's very popular. A lot of people like it. I tried it multiple times. I don't know what it was. The sodium was too strong tasting for me. I couldn't sit with it as nutrition. Doesn't work for me. So I've kind of sworn that off too. So I like something more of a like neutral or lighter taste. Something I get palate fatigue, I guess is what it's called. So some of those like stronger flavors, I just can't deal with that.
Have you ever, I guess probably have been in a situation where you're like, I really got to choke this goo down or take another sip of this stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't want to. I don't want to.
A lot of times, right? And I learned that I tried it a couple of times before I guess it finally sunk into me the gels, they get sticky. The drinks,
Yeah,
they
they're a
get
mess.
sticky.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in an ultra, you're drinking, you're spilling gels, you're trying to suck them down, you get it everywhere. So you put it in your pocket gets all sticky. So just like after multiple hours of that, you don't want to suck down another gel. So I've tried to do more and more real foods. Like I said, I do like Coke, but just Coke, maybe a slice of pizza. The 100 miler I did, they had burnt ends at one of the aid stations and moose meatballs. So I found like I like meat and things like that at aid stations, which they say to eat carbs, but really if you get calories in any way, that's what's most important.
Have you kept track of the most weight that you've lost doing one of these 100 milers? Do you remember how much?
Oh, I did pretty good with not losing too much weight. I would say like maybe 5 or 6 pounds because I've really dialed in on staying hydrated. I got a hydration test, so I know how much fluid I'm losing. So I tried it. And this is recent, like within the past year or two, that I've gotten smarter about it, about drinking and eating enough. So I stay on top of it because if you fall behind, it's hard to catch up. You have to stay on top of it.
What shoes are you rolling with now?
Yeah, so I'm mixing it up. I have a mix of various Nikes, their latest Nike Zagama. It's a good everyday like cruiser for the trails. I do have. I'm looking at some Asics. I haven't gotten them yet. I believe it's called the Trabuco. I may be mispronouncing that. And then a lot of Solomon. I ran my last race in a pair of the S Lab Genesis. I really like that shoe. And then I have a couple of other Solomons that I've ran in here and there. I think all of my races last year were in the S Lab Ultra or the S Lab Genesis. So Solomon's good. I have a skinny foot, so they fit me.
They fit you. When you go to make your shoe decisions, do you have a good shop you go down to, or you kind of do all your research online and then test it yourself?
Yeah, so a lot of it's online research, but then when I'm ready to pull a trigger, especially if it's something that I haven't worn before, I have a local store that I'll go into. I like to support them if I can,
Yeah.
and put it on my foot, try it out. But really, it's hard to tell until you get on the trails. You don't know how the traction's going to be, how it's going to rub. Maybe if you're running downhill, if it's going to rub your Achilles or your toes, if they're going to jam into the front until you get out there. So that's why I try to do a lot of the research and reading ahead of time.
Any consistency in how many miles you put on a pair of shoes before you got to throw them away? Or does it depend on the shoe?
It definitely depends on the shoe. I try to hit 400, and I'll track it within my Garmin app. Some
400 miles?
shoes,
Yeah.
yeah, 400 miles, and some of them the lugs will wear out. I've had some shoes where they're slick, right, by 300 miles, and I can't use them, or I can use them for mowing the grass maybe, but I'm not using them for trail running. So I try to do 400, but if I hit 400 and they're in good shape and they're still cruising, I'll still wear them. So it really depends, but that seems to be the sweet spot.
You don't wear any of those 3-inch shorts, do you?
What kind of shorts?
The really short shorts.
Oh man, so back in my road running days, I would not the split shorts, not the 2 inchers, but 5 inch, 5 inch. Yeah, but now, yeah, maybe 5 to 7. I have to carry all my snacks. I can't go too short.
What brand and model of shorts are you wearing?
So I will wear the Patagonia Strider Pro for most of my runs. They're very lightweight. So if they get wet, sweat, they dry quickly. They feel like you're not wearing anything. They have little side pouches where you can put gels. The pouches aren't too big, but they're bigger than a lot of other shorts where you can kind of just stuff things in there.
Right.
Those, and I like Nike has a pair too. I think it's called the Second Sun or Second Sunrise, something like that. And the storage on those things are amazing. They're a little heavier material, and they brief, or the liner inside will chafe sometimes, but the zippers and the amount of storage they have on those is awesome.
Do you wear underwear or anything underneath your shorts, or just use they have a built-in liner that you use?
Yeah, I prefer a built-in liner, and most shorts do have that, so I just go that way. And then I'll use some of the Squirrel's Nut Butter or Glide or whatever. It's kind of like anti-chafe.
Got it. What do you use for your first upper body layer? You got a hoodie you wear?
So I typically just go, it depends on the season, of course. I go light t-shirt for most runs, especially if it's, summer time frame.
Are
But
you wearing a short sleeve t-shirt?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
really well.
So I probably should go long. I do have a couple of long sleeve light sun shirts that I'll wear. I just don't like long sleeves in general. So if it's like this time of year, of course I do. I'll layer up. I'll wear a grid fleece, something like that. But if it's as it warms up, I'll go as light as I can. I haven't progressed to the no shirt running. I've never done that. I can't get into that.
Yeah, you got to lube up here because you get chafed there.
Yeah.
Especially those, you must have some big old lats, doing 5x5 at 30 pounds. What do you got? Do you even bother with the mid layer? Or do you have like a fleece layer? Just use another base layer for your mid layer, or what do you do? Can't do much, but what do you carry for your mid layer?
Yeah, so I'll go straight. It depends. It depends on the weather. If it's, let's say, freezing, 32, maybe 20 to 30 degrees, I'll just go straight grid fleece. I warm up quickly. I know I'll be fine. I'll breathe. I don't want to get too hot. Want to start on the cold
Grid
side.
fleece stuff is heavy though. Is there one that you a brand and model that you like? Because that stuff's heavy.
Yeah, I have a Mountain Hardware that's pretty light. I like it a lot. Won't be too bad. And it's almost like a half zip, so I can vent pretty good out
Yeah,
the front if I do warm up. Otherwise, I'll go light long sleeve shirt. And when it gets to maybe teens, single digits, like you guys get out there in Wyoming quite a bit, I'll just throw on a shell, waterproof layer on top of that, and that warms me up pretty good.
well, you do use a waterproof layer, huh? You don't just go to it like a Patagonia Houdini or something like that. You go right to the waterproof layer. What
I
what,
ha-
what layer are you rolling with right now? What do you use?
I do have a Houdini. I know that's not the waterproof layer, but I'll use that depending on the conditions. If I want it a little bit more breathable, a little lighter.
Yeah,
But I also have it's a Shake Dry by Gore for
got it. Yeah,
the
I got one of
waterproof
those
layer.
too. Yeah, yeah. You get one of them Sitka ones. I got one of them Sitka ones before they stopped making them. There
No,
was some other people. I don't think they do shake dry anymore. Anybody does?
they don't. So I grabbed it before they stopped. So yeah, I have that as my waterproof layer, depending on the conditions. But yeah, that's usually if I'm out in those conditions, it's usually snowing or pretty miserable.
You got a light. What do you use for gloves? You weren't taking gloves?
So I'm gonna switch this up, I think. So I have my hands get very cold. My fingertips, I have poor circulation, so the fingertips will get white, Raynaud's or whatever it's called. So I will typically double up. I'll do a merino liner and then I have a waterproof glove. I've recently switched over to mittens
Yeah,
for
yeah. Mittens be.
yeah, mittens, and that's helped out a lot. And I know that if I can bear the first 3 miles, 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, they'll warm up. But it's that first 30 minutes that they feel like they're about to fall off.
And do you wear a hat? You must bring a hat, or maybe not. If you're not wearing a
It,
hoodie.
I will. I'll bring a beanie again, so that way I can ditch it. I also have some of those grid fleece that I was talking about. They all have a built-in hood, so sometimes I'll wear that. Just depends on the situation.
Got it.
It's like the outdoor research. I think it's the Vigor. They have a built-in hood. It's it's nice to have on that too.
So I don't, because when you're going to aid station one of these races, are you wearing one of those high speed looking ultra vests with your goos right there?
Yeah, exactly.
What model are you rolling? What model are you rocking with?
Yeah, so I wear the Solomon. It is the ADV. I think it's the advanced skin. I use the 12 liter. I think they definitely have a smaller version. I think that may be 5 or 8 liter, but I wear the 12
Uh huh.
because I like to be able to bring extra if I need. I'd rather be able to have the space and not use it than vice versa. And just have one vest. So, like on my long adventure runs on the weekends, I can store all my food. I can store extra nutrition. You don't have aid stations, right, when you're doing your own thing. So
Right.
it fits a lot.
So I'm just looking on Solomon's site right now. It looks like they got the vest and the backpack kind of in one unit.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a vest, and then on the back there's a zipper that goes all the way down. You can store things in there too.
Got it. Got it.
And yeah, I've gone through. So I had a previous version of it. Zipper broke off. Wasn't too thrilled about that, but they replaced it for free. Shout out to Solomon for their at least customer service on that. I haven't had any issues with the 12 liter. It's a popular model. It's a popular vest. I'll definitely use it for UTMB this year because they have a required kit that's pretty extensive. I'll need to have a lot of things on me the entire race, so it'll come in
Yeah.
handy.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, God, if I was you and I was going to run a 100 miler, I'd really be spending money to cut weight and see how I could do that as efficiently as possible and still stay relatively safe. The issue in terms of staying safe for hypothermia is if you have to stop. Just moving, you'll be all right. But yeah, if you have to stop and you're not packing it down puffy, are you, or anything like that? You just got your shell and your mid layer, or are you taking a puffy? You're not. Am I right?
No, not when I'm running. That's more like when I'm backcountry hunting. I'll definitely have a puffy layer, but yeah, I'll have a mid layer and then I'll have an outer shell layer, gloves. And then for this race, UTMB, I'll also be required, there's a long list, but I'll have to have a waterproof bottom layer too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'll have to be head to toe and then also an emergency blanket, 2 headlamps. Yeah, there's a full list of things that you need.
They must have had some Florida boys out there before get in trouble. So they.
That's right.
Any other um any other lessons learned, I guess, in terms of I guess we talked a little bit about what you weren't using for your event nutrition. So not that you're getting at the aid stations, but what do you got in your bottles? What are you using for gels if you are using gels?
Yeah, so I'll do a combination. I've been drinking Never Second lately. It's a good product. I like
Is that the brand or the model?
that's the brand. So it's called Never
Okay,
Second,
got it.
and it tastes. I don't get fatigued of it really. I enjoy it. It's easy. The math, the way they have it split out, it's in 30 gram of carb increments, so you can do 30, 60, 90, 120, whatever, pretty easily. So I'll do that in either drink mix or gels. I have also gotten into making my own. So I bought a big tub of maltodextrin from Amazon. So I'll mix that with straight table sugar. And that's essentially what these sports drinks are sugar water. So I'll mix it. I will add sodium to however much I want, mix it up, add a little flavor as far as granulated orange or granulated lime or liquid drops. And I'll mix that. It's way cheaper. You can get it dialed exactly to whatever you want, however much sodium, however much carbs. So I'll do that. It's just more of a pain to get everything out, weigh it. So depending on what I'm doing, I'll do either one. And I'll mix in real foods, which I did a lot last year. Made rice cakes, which is essentially rice with whatever you want to mix in and eat those. Very popular with cyclists. I've done tortilla roll-ups, peanut butter jelly. That's
So you're carrying this stuff, or are you getting it at the aid stations, or you're carrying it?
so for my training runs, yeah, I'm carrying it all.
But I mean at the race. Yeah, at
Oh,
the race.
at the race, yeah, they usually have a full spread. I'll carry my powder, my gels, or I have it in my drop bags, but they usually have a full spread of all kinds of different foods that you can.
Yeah, so you can chow down.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever been so hungry you ate too much and then suffered with the stomach for the first few miles after?
This may sound crazy, but no, I have an iron stomach, and I attribute it
Just
to.
pound.
Oh yeah. So a lot of people that's a big issue in ultras is GI distress. I
Oh
have
yeah,
not
yeah.
had
You haven't
stomach
had
issues.
diarrhea or puking or nothing like that?
No, no.
How about caffeine? You sucking caffeine?
Yeah, I do.
What's your delivery system?
I'll do caffeine pills usually. It's easy, cheap. There are gels with caffeine in it. I'll do that because I try to separate with a gel with the caffeine. You're taking in carbs and caffeine. I try to separate all the variables. So if I just want caffeine or if I just want carbs, then I can take them individually. So yeah, I'll bring caffeine pills with me, and throughout the night, as I'm not really afraid of the caffeine. A lot of people are. I don't get the jitters or anything like that. But yeah, I think they say 5 to 7 milligrams per kilogram of weight, somewhere around there is, you know, kind of a recommended dose for athletic performance. But it's hard to kind of gauge that over a 24, 25 hour event. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean that might be for like doing a CrossFit WOD, but I mean you're just trying to stay awake. Yeah, we talked a little bit about your darkest period, in one of these races. Um, is there either a training race or in one of the races that you have done where you just been flowing along? It's just been amazing. Like there's no pain, you're just flowing and you're flowing. Are you just feeling that now and that when you're running every once in a while?
Yeah, 100%. So I would say a lot of times during training runs, those are my favorite. I know we talk about races, we talk about performance, and I love all that too. But my favorite days are the routes that I plan out in the mountains, the adventure runs, and just getting out there. And you're the only person out there, the only person that you can see out there, and you're just cruising. Like you got a stream next to you, you have your food on your back, you're just out running on this trail. You may see a moose, you may see an elk, whatever the case may be, and it doesn't feel like you're doing work. I'm out here, I'm enjoying it, and yeah, you kind of hit that flow state, and I live for those days.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about traveling light and moving fast in the mountain. I've never done an ultra, but I've done plenty of 20 milers and 30 milers and a couple of 50 milers before, just on my own adventure, right? Adventure run. Well, good for you. Recovery, I guess. Are you a yoga guy? You do foam rolling? You got an ice bath? You wasted your money on any of that stuff,
I yeah.
or anything,
So
that you do that has worked for you? Go ahead.
I like so I that's like they just kind of go hand in hand. I do have one of those massage guns. I think
Yeah, yeah.
it stays in its cabinet. I don't use it anymore. Yeah, so they're popular. Um, it doesn't for me doesn't get deep. I like to get into it's like especially on the hips, the glutes. So the thing that I like is a hard foam roller and a lacrosse ball, and just get into the small areas. And I try to stay on top of this. I probably could be better about it, as could everybody else, but I try to foam roll, especially after a big day, and I leave it next to my TV. So if I'm trying to watch TV or something in the evening, I look over there and there it is, and so it reminds me you should probably hop on this and roll around or do some. I keep my bands over there and I'll do like little ankle inversions and stuff like that. So try to stay on top of that for recovery. And the biggest thing is just food and sleep. Got my sleep dialed in.
How much sleep you getting at night?
Hours wise, probably 7. So it's not too much as far as number of hours. I wake up at 4 every morning, but quality sleep. I keep it cold. I have one of those mattress pads that cools. So I've got it ice, bone cold, dark. And when I hit the bed, I'm out and yeah, I'm getting quality sleep. So I can definitely tell a difference when I'm not in my own bed, which has pros and cons. I turn into almost to like a sleep diva when I'm not in my bed. But when I'm home, I'm getting some good sleep.
We won't go into nutrition or what your daily meals are too much. We might save that for another one. But any idea, are you counting calories? And if so, when you're reaching the top of your progression, how many calories are you eating a day, or are you trying to pound down?
Yeah, so I count them only to the extent of because I know on my big days, if I don't pay attention to what I'm eating, I won't eat nearly enough, and that's going to compound really quickly if I'm not taking enough fuel, and then I have another hard session the next day, and then I'm just going to get in a deficit. So I try to hit protein 1 gram per pound of body weight. I try to hit light. That's usually not a problem. And then I have a minimum fat and then fill the rest with carbs, mainly focused around before and after and during. So I try to not just like load it up before I go to bed. But yeah, I try to hit my calories, not getting too much of a deficit. And I'd say 5,000 or so. I think with my effort I did Saturday with my 4-hour bike ride and strength was 5,000 calories.
Is what you burned on that effort.
I burned between the ride, the lifting, and just kind of like my normal daily calories. It was 55 to 6,000 calories. Yeah.
What is your grocery bill? When you go to
Man,
Costco, are you leaving there with $800 minimum?
you knew I had to go to Costco, and that's
You have to go to Costco.
yeah, yeah. So that's where fruits, veggies, meat. Yeah, it's all Costco, and yeah, I put down some food for sure. And I try to load up on the peanut butter and try to get some easy calories that way. Bagel, peanut butter, those are my staples. But I eat a lot of fruit and veggies too. It's just to try to stay somewhat healthy. But when you're trying to get in calories, you got to get it any way you can.
Any question about Ultra that I didn't ask that I should have?
That's a good question. I guess maybe what I'm working on now, where my deficiencies are, and where I have room for improvement.
Do it. What do you suck at? You said running downhill before was the one thing for sure.
Yeah, running downhill I can definitely improve on that. I would say my ability to move efficiently uphill. I've improved at it. I'm still not like those first people I saw going up the hill, on that 100K. So I would just say moving up and down the mountain as quickly as I'd like and as efficiently as I'd like. I feel like I spend a lot of energy or more than I should. Kind of the flats, no problem, but I think just moving up and down, becoming
you're talking
more
not
fluid.
A fitness issue with moving uphill, some type of technique you need to work on. Be specific.
Yes, it's I would say skill set. Maybe taking more efficient steps, whether it be not just kind of loping up or like lumbering up the mountain or down the mountain, but I think being able to just move a little more effortlessly. And that comes with time and skill. I'm constantly focusing on where I'm going to be moving rather than, head up, kind of looking further out in the distance and just I'm thinking about every step probably a little more than I need to.
So when you see those people who are blowing by you or telling you to get out of the way on the uphill, they're flowing in shorter steps maybe?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And they're probably more head up, gaze up. I'm sure I'm leaned over, looking down.
Feet. Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see who in the ultra world right now, male or female, who are the best right now? The ones you look up to, maybe not the fastest. The ones you look up to, you're just amazed at what they're doing.
Yeah, I think and easy answer is Courtney Dauwalter. She's just an absolute monster on the mountain. She makes it look easy, and not only any one effort, but I think her consistency is, a couple of years ago, she ran Western States, UTMB, and there was another one she ran in there, not Leadville, Hard Rock. She ran the Western States Hard Rock UTMB trio, won them all, and just her consistency and the way she makes it look easy, that's definitely something that I look up to. And there's a number of athletes that I follow that the times are just, everybody's getting faster. Everybody's pushing each other to do better. So I think the field as a whole is really cool to see. It's just like the up and comers that are in the sport.
So you're a sponsored athlete with us, but if someone gave you a call right now and said, I want you to be a sponsored athlete for us, Jonathan, but you got to drop that fucker Rob Shaul at MTI, who would you hope was on the other of that line? Who's your dream sponsor?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't come cheap because I would much rather have the freedom and liberty to kind of pick my own gear and not be beholden to any one gear. So I don't think there's, I don't really have one answer for that one. I think I would prefer the freedom of sponsoring myself. That's why I work. That's why I have a career. But yeah, I would want to keep myself.
Okay, this is the highest Jeopardy question you're going to get. If you had to choose between backcountry bow hunting or ultra running for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Hunting.
You would want to hunt, right?
Yeah, that was
Oh yeah,
probably
okay, there we go. That's the right answer.
that was it was probably a curveball after talking about running the entire time. No, I have an obsession with hunting and just being out there. You're still out in the mountains. It's peaceful. Just being out there with the animals. You still get a workout in. You're up and down the mountain. So I would choose hunting, and that's something you can grow old into. Running, who knows how long my lifetime is on that, but hunting, I think I could. I'm going to try to take that as far as I can, as long as I can.
Yeah, when I started backcountry, I'd hunted with rifle, but never really got into it that much. And then I started bow hunting. Prior to that, I'd go to the mountains. It was a training. I was always training in the mountains. It was almost as much of a workout as it was getting out. And of course, that hurt me with hunting because you go fast. You don't want to go fast hunting. You got to slow down. How have you adjusted to that? Because if you're used to running through the mountains, I mean, you're moving fast hunting. You're missing stuff, and you're going to fuck something up. You're going to miss an opportunity. Did that take some use? I mean, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, I grew up hunting whitetail, so I was even before running. I was used to moving slowly, and whitetail are jumpy. They're tuned
Were you
in.
still hunting them or stand hunting them?
Yeah. Oh, mainly stand still from time to time, but yeah, mainly stand southeast in Georgia. So
Yeah.
that's the style. And but you move if they catch your wind, so as any animal, but especially whitetail, right? They're tuned in. It was actually so moving slowly, watching your movement. All of that was kind of already ingrained into me. And going into the elk woods, you can actually move a little bit more. You can make some noise. They're used to hearing noise, so that was a different change for me. But I still move slowly. I think that was kind of been ingrained in me, which was a good carryover. And now I've caught the bug, and yeah, looking forward to every September. I have my tag already for this year in Idaho, so I've got it in pocket and ready to go.
Good for you. What bow are you shooting this year?
So I just picked up a new Hoyt RX-9 Ultra. I had a Hoyt 4 or 5 years, the Hoyt Venom, and I was changing out my cables and strings, and I messed up. I put the cables on wrong. I broke my limbs. I have a home press. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a sign. It was right before the RX-9 was just released. I was like, okay, sure I could repair it, but let me go shoot this bow just to see if I should repair it or get a new bow. And I shot the bow, and it's like, yeah, these new ones, they shoot
It's
real
like take
nice.
my money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was looking for a reason, and I found it.
So that's good that you work on your own bows. Yeah, did you do that when you're in Florida? Work on your own bows, or is that something you picked up out here out in the West?
Yeah, out west when I back east, I was mainly rifle hunting.
Okay.
There was some bow, but it's not as popular as it is out here. Not as conducive. And I'm sure it was. It was just rifle hunting was what was done. You go out there, sit in a stand with your rifle, and shoot a deer. Right. The art of archery hunting it's a different ball game. It's definitely more popular out here, and I've embraced that.
We won't go too much into hunting. I think we got a couple other athletes on the team who do that like we do, and so maybe we'll come back to that. We're bumping up against the time here too. What pack you running now for your hunting pack?
Yeah, so I have a Stone Glacier. It's their Sky Talus 6900. So it's big, but it packs down to bivy mode. It has a load shelf. I have the Nalgene holder, all the little accessories, but it's been a good pack. I enjoy it. I throw it down on training quite a bit. I'll throw some 45-pound plates in there or whatever weight I can get in there, and that'll be my ruck pack.
Good ruck around with it. Good for you. What boots you running with? Or do you wear
I
boots where you're
have,
trail runner?
oh no, yeah, I definitely wear boots. I have Schnee's out of Bozeman. They have the Beartooth. No insulation. I try to go 0 gram, and if I'm mainly hunting September, October, and if
Yeah,
it's
it's hot.
cold, I'll just layer up on socks. I'd rather add insulation than
Is
have
that
it
a
in the
leather
boot.
boot? Is it leather?
It's leather. Yeah.
Did you read my story about my hunting lessons from a couple years ago?
I may have read it. What was
I
the
had,
article about?
yeah, I think it was lessons learned. I'll send it to you. But yeah, I made a mistake and wore leather boots and it was wet. nice leather boots, but man, I wore 8. They got wet. They never dried out over 10 days. I was just heavy. They'd be frozen in the morning, and I'd have to wear them wet all day. And then yeah, they were so heavy. I went with Sam actually, and for part of it, and he had a pair of just like Solomon Quest, Quest fours.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, his is wet too. You can't keep them dry if it's raining. The water goes down your friggin' pants into your boot. Yeah, I mean that's no more leather boots hunting for me. I like it. Them Crispies fit me good, and I got to, it's always going to be synthetic for me. So you just if it's looking wet, wear your synthetics. Although when I was your age, I was hunting in trail running shoes. I wouldn't even bother boots.
Yeah, I feel like that's how it was back in the day. Trail runners, minimal gear. Now we have it too easy these days.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not that long ago, but I need them more because I'm older in my knees. But yeah, when I was, a few years ago when I first started backcountry hunting, I just wear trail runners. I love trail runners. I do like. It's nice to have your little more protection when you're, chasing through the timber. But good
Yeah.
for you.
No,
All right, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's nice to have a little bit of rigidity and kind of climbing up mountains. It helps you out, especially if you have something on your, a weighted pack. A little more structure there.
I had one more before. I think we're going to come back to hunting here fairly soon to some other athletes, but I thought I had another hunting question. Maybe I don't. All right, let's see. Have you hunted for mule deer yet? Bow
So
hunting?
yeah, I have, man. Those things are the gray ghost for a reason. I was trying to put a stalk on a couple of deer. I had the wind played right, and yeah, they're tough. I haven't shot a mule deer. I've shot an elk, but yeah, I've tried to put a stalk on a couple of mule deer, and they were tuned in, similar to those white-tailed back east, and they were bedded down. I knew exactly where they were, but they also knew exactly where I was when I got to 60 yards. So that'll probably be. I definitely want to do more mule deer hunting. I know when people say they start hunting for muleys, they get into it pretty heavy. So right now I'm focused on the elk.
Yeah, there's some friggin' fanatics when it comes to the mule deer. What have you bow hunted for antelope yet?
I have not, no, but I could only imagine. I'm sure they're jumpy.
It's I like antelope bow hunting the best because it's constant movement. I mean, you can put I shot an antelope and I think I put this I stalked him like 3 times and finally got him the third one. It's really difficult, but it's really I mean in terms of action because you can see them right. You don't got to search
Yep.
for them. And then I like elk because it's so intimate and it's really interesting being audible. The audible side of it is really interesting. Like you said, you call and they answer you like, and then mule deer. I've done that. I've got a mule deer, my bow, and but I don't like the pace of that so much. The getting up, glassing, waiting, all that stuff. I don't like the pace so much.
Yep.
But
Yeah, it's a lot of spot and stalk, glassing, bed them down, just wait for a mule deer. Yeah.
yeah, all right. Lightning round. You ready for your lightning round questions?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what athletic mountain accomplishment are you most proud of?
I would say Squaw Peak, the way I paced it and executed that race. It was the 50 miler. Even splits on that race.
Which one are you least proud of?
Going back to the 100K Never Summer, I disrespected the mountains and the distance on that one.
That one time you quit in the mountains and are embarrassed by it.
Oh man, I would have to say last year. So last year on my hunt in Montana, and it was in grizzly country. I had a 7-day planned that I was supposed to be hunting. Started out great. Weather got a little windy towards the end. I was out there just alone in my thoughts. I left 2 days early. As soon as I got home, I was kicking myself. I was like, why did I leave 2 days? I'm never going to do that again. So it was one of those takeaways with this is the time you look forward all year to these trips. Why'd you leave 2 days early? You were a little uncomfortable. You weren't seeing the animals that you thought you were going to see. So yeah, I would say embarrassed, disappointed, whatever you want to call it. And that won't happen again.
Yeah, I've been there hunting. That's so interesting about hunting is that things can change no matter how dark it is. It can change in a flash.
Yeah, first night I had elk around my tent bugling. Day 3 they'd gone silent. It just turned south. I don't know. It was just out there in grizzly country, and I was just let it get to me.
Do you have a spray or were you packing a Glock?
I had a spray. If I would do it again, I'd probably go 10 millimeter or something. And there were some grizzlies on. I met a couple guys at the trailhead on their elk, They had some grizz on their carcass.
Yeah, yeah. I got grizzlies all around me, so yeah. I wear a Glock. I'll have to show you how I rig it for my bino harness. I have it right here, up like this. It's not like down on my side. It's almost like right here. So if you drop your pack, you got your Glock with you the whole time. I got one of them tens. Although I did, we did some research, and some guys done a research, and they take a look. There's been just as many of them killed with a nine, and there's some companies now who make special ammo for nines. And so I might go to a nine. And actually, my guy, I have one of the compact Glocks, and I can't shoot it as well as a nine, but it's not like you have a lot of time to shoot anyway.
Yeah. Oh no, no, you definitely don't, and it better be a good shot.
Are you able to shoot your bow in your backyard, or you got to go to a range somewhere?
Yeah, so I was shooting it yesterday. I could shoot out 30, 35 yards here, which is nice. So it's plenty to get some reps in. And then if I want to shoot out further, I go to the range. But I try to shoot as much as I can. It's probably not as much as I should. But yeah, especially with this new bow, it's nice to get out there and shoot.
Let's see. Favorite mountain adventure? Not, I mean, the one that you've gone on that you just look back on your favorite. Doesn't mean the one you're most accomplished, but you look back and say that was awesome.
Yeah, I don't think it's any one. I think it's those big weekends that I was talking about. I mean, if I did have to pick one, there was a route out here near Snowbird Ski Resort in the summer, and it just kind of went south. It was a 30, 35 miler. So it went up above, and you dropped down on the other side of Snowbird. It was just a big loop. I'd say it was a long day. It's probably one of my favorite weekend adventures that I've done, and I'm definitely going to do it again this year.
Good for you. Yeah, your dream mountain adventure.
So Alaska Yukon moose out there, just wild country in Alaska. I've always wanted to do it. I said I'd get out there by the time I turned 40, and actually just booked with a transport for next year. So I'll get out there before I'm turned 30. But I've never been out to Alaska, and it's been a dream of mine.
Good for you. So you're looking at archery or rifle, or taking them both?
That's a good question. I tell myself archery, so I'll probably stick with it. But yeah, I'll probably stick with the bow.
Yeah, I don't know if I could cheat with the rifle anymore. It seemed like cheating, I think.
Yeah.
But your favorite piece of gear? Can't say your headlamp. I need another one.
Yeah, so that'll be my watch, Phoenix 7. And the reason I say that is because I use it every single day, multiple times a day. Every adventure, every workout that I'm on, I'm using it to some extent. Battery life's great. It's durable. We can wear it to work, around town. It just stays on my wrist.
Let's just wear Apple Watches all the time. Not the gun.
You can't put me in that bucket. Yeah.
What's the most overrated piece of gear? Could be hunting, could be ultra, but something that everybody loves. That maybe it's the Speed Goat.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the massage gun has to be the most overrated.
That's a good one.
And I know this is a secondary, and I'm kind of on the fence with this one, but I think elk calls. I'm getting, and I used to be in the bucket of calling, but I read, more experience I get, the more I realize that maybe it's overrated. Doesn't mean it's useless, but I think calling may be a little overrated for elk. So that'll be my secondary.
You mean bugling or cow calling or both or no?
Bugling. I think cow calling is pretty useful.
Yeah.
But I think location bugle could be useful, but I just think it's overdone. And now, a lot of times you're calling other hunters, especially out there in public lands.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Are you like me where you have a couple calls in the cup holder of your truck or whatever, and you drive around and you called yourself when you're driving? There you go,
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I have one in my truck too. Yeah.
Okay. What's your most dangerous mountain mistake? In other words, you got home, said that could have gone south.
Oh yeah. I would say when I was on a scouting trip in the mountains for a hunting trip, I got my tent set up. I was camping on a ridge. I needed to get some water. I looked at my map. I thought I knew where there was water. I dropped my pack. It was 4 p.m. It's like, I've got plenty of time. Hike down a mile. I can get back up with my water. I'll be good to go. I get to where, and so all I have with me is my Nalgene, my water filter. I hike down. The water's not there. It's thick. It's getting muddy. I head down. I know there's a creek a couple miles down, but it's thick the entire way down. And it's getting dark. My headlamp's back in my pack that I dropped and left at camp. And I'm freaking out at this time. I'm like, oh man, it's about to get dark. I don't have a headlamp. I'm out here. It was also grizzly country. And I was like, I can hightail it back, but then I don't have water, and I need some water. I got food. I need to hide. I'm just hiking all day, and I eventually made it down. Was able to fill up and hightail it up, and it was a hoof up. It was steep and deep, and I made it back to my tent. It was getting dark. I could, just get back to my tent, and I was like, that could have gone south really quick. So I'm never gonna drop my pack or my headlamp. That's why my headlamp's one of my favorite pieces of gear. I'm gonna keep it on me.
Yeah, I think I got my hunting kit. I think I got one of them little tiny ones in my final pack. Most scared you ever been in the mountains? The same incident?
Yes, and hiking back in the dark in grizzly country with seeing eyeballs looking at you, and you don't know if it's a coyote or a grizzly or what it may be, but yeah, you can get scared pretty quick that way.
And last one, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, so I wouldn't go back and tell myself to not mess up, because I think my mess ups kind of got me where I am today. So I do appreciate those, but I would say don't follow the crowd and just to create my own path. I think there was a period, especially college, post college, where I did what I thought was the right thing or the socially acceptable thing to do, like the same things as other people, thought the same thing as other people, because that was what I thought was the right thing socially to fit in. So I'd probably tell myself, do your own thing, follow your mind, what you believe in. Over time, I've gotten to that point where I care a lot less what people think. And obviously the ones that are closest to me and my family and my wife and the people I care most about, I care what they think. But other people's opinions, I put less weight into that. And so that's what I tell myself.
Have you heard this? This didn't come from me, but I repeat it lots. Your 20s, your 30s, you're worried about what people think about you. Then your 40s, you're like, fuck them, I don't care what they think about me. And then in your 50s, you realize they weren't thinking about you the whole time.
Yeah, I think I'm already there. I must have skipped to the 40s because I'm there. Yeah.
You don't care what they think. Jonathan, thanks so much for your time here, and we'll be doing more of these. Appreciate you. We'll talk next time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks, Rob.
All right.
Bye.
Turn this thing off.